Hi everyone, this is Mr. Matas coming at you from my studio. So I know some of you have been wondering what we're going to be doing with painting and the supplies that I gave you. So that's what's going on today, okay? So what I'm going to be doing is going to be showing you how to actually use your acrylic paints and see how different they are from the watercolors that we used. So of course, first we're going to be doing some simple value scale so that way we can learn how to blend and mix with our paints as we did with watercolor, but not as extensive. Okay, we're going to be learning the difference between monochromatic, complementary, using a new technique called scumbling, and then how we can manipulate scumbling to make it really super fun and cool. Okay, so acrylics are different than watercolors. They're typically more forgiving, so if you make a mistake, you can actually kind of erase it by painting over it. Cool. All right. Another thing too is that acrylics, similar to watercolors, tend to be a little bit transparent at first. But another very big difference is we get to use white, so that's kind of cool too. Acrylics can also dry pretty quickly. It depends on how much water you use, just like watercolors. But again, it's a matter of playing with the paints and figuring out what they do and how they do it. All right, so go ahead and get your stuff. I'm going to be showing you what stuff you need in a moment, so just be ready for that, and then you go to get your stuff, okay? All right, so here's the stuff that we're going to be needing. So here's what we need. All right. So we're definitely gonna need our paints. Okay. If you didn't grab the Liquitex Basics from me, that's fine. As long as you use some kind of acrylic paint is gonna be good for you. Okay. You're also going to need a ruler. Doesn't matter what kind of ruler, or a straight edge. For example, I have I have this piece of wood. It's a T-square actually, but it's straight. I don't need the measurements. What I need to do is I just need something basically kind of like straight like this. Another thing that we're going to need is we are actually going to need pencil to draw with. It's nothing major. An eraser if you have one. You're going to need some masking tape. Whether you use the blue or the white, doesn't matter. I'm going to be using the blue just because it's easier to see. So just some masking tape, not a big deal. If you don't have some masking tape, that's fine, not a big deal. You're also going to need your paintbrushes, okay? I can't remember if I gave you this one in your new set. If I didn't, it's not a big deal. Whenever I use it, go ahead and just use the big one or one of the other ones except for the fan. But I'll explain as we get into that. I'm getting ahead of myself. And finally, we're going to need a water container. So doesn't matter what kind of water container it is. It could be a plastic cup, it could be a little tub, it could be a bowl. Doesn't matter as long as you're able to put some water in it. You definitely don't want it smaller than this. If you notice, it's about the width of my hand. Okay, that's pretty good. Also a polystyrene plate, or if you don't have this, if you have a like a piece of wax paper or something like that, that's gonna work as well. Okay. But this is going to work. I gave you a large bag because later on we're going to put stuff away in there, so that way we keep it nice and fresh. All right. So that, and finally you're going to need a piece of canvas paper that I gave you. All right. There are two sides to this, and I'll explain that later. You're going to need a pair of scissors as well because we're going to cut this up. Okay. So go ahead and get your materials, and I'll meet you back over here. The first materials we're going to use are going to be our scissors, masking tape, pencil, and ruler, as well as our piece of canvas paper. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be cutting this piece down. All right. So now one thing to think about though, first of all, is that there are two sides to it, obviously, but one side is primed and one is not. What that means is that one side is going to be whiter than the other. That's what you want to look for. Also, if you can't really tell because they are pretty close, you'll notice that the back side actually has almost like dirt marks on there. Okay, that's how you know that's the natural canvas as well. If for whatever reason you can't tell the difference between the back and the white of the canvas, like doing this, look for these little striations. Okay, so first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be folding this in half. Alright, there we go. We got it cut in half. That's pretty good. Alright. So now our next step is going to be we're going to kind of measure this out really easily, okay? not a big deal. All we're going to be doing is taking the ruler, and now we're going to need our pencil, right? Because you can't draw without a pencil. So I'm going to put my pencil right here against this edge, right? And I'm going to trace it. Trace there, and I'm going to slide the ruler over. I'm going to draw another line. See that? Cool. Does that make sense? Now my next thing is I'm going to line up here. And I'm going to line up down here. Alright. Now, from here what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it. So I'm going to turn this because I'm going to be painting in these areas. Alright. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tape off around these areas. So I'm going to mask them off. Okay, so again, I'm going to be using my blue masking tape just so you can see it a little bit easier. Now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to grab some more materials, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and go grab my paints and my brushes and all that stuff. So go ahead and get caught up to this. So for this next part, what we're going to do is we're going to actually be using our paints, and we're going to be needing some of our paint brushes. Okay, so you'll notice first of all that what I have here, so I've got my primary colors red, yellow, and blue. Alright, and I got black and I have white. Notice how they're around the outside edge so I can mix in the middle in here. Alright, so that's very important. I want to make sure that I maximize how much I have here. I may have put a little bit too much there. Then I have some warm water in here. It's not filled all the way to the top, but I have some warm water. So I'm going to actually have that outside of the frame so that way I can maximize how much you can see in here. Now, I'm going to be using these three brushes primarily. Alright, this one comes in much later. This is called a fan brush. Alright, and you should remember that these are known as, what do they call it? Flats. Okay, now since this one is brand new, it still has some starch in it, so I'm definitely going to wet it a little bit. Okay, also, one thing I forgot to tell you is to have some paper towel. Okay, I have a piece over here that one of my sons was using and ripped. So I'm going to hang on to that. So I'm going to have that off to the side over here so that way I, again, maximize how much of this you actually see. Alright, so remember too, I'm left-handed, so sorry about that. Now, with acrylics, one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that acrylics dry quick. So water is going to be your friend, but you have to be careful not to put too much water down, okay? So first thing I'm going to do is up here, I'm going to do a monochromatic value scale. I'm going to choose blue in the middle, and then I'm going to go to light, and I'm going to go to dark over this way. Alright, but you're going to notice how I layer my colors, okay? So, I come in here. Notice how I just dip the tip into it, right? I don't scoop up the paint. Similar to what we do with watercolor. So that's the light side. Now the dark side, I'm going to do the same thing. Well, apparently somebody was calling me as I was finishing this up. But basically all I did was I just added a little bit more layer of the blue, little bit more of the white, and then I'm mixing in a little bit more with the black in there, just so that way I can get a nice even transition. So fortunately, that's what you missed. Not a big deal. So here's what's going to happen now, though. This is another part that you missed. Is now what I'm going to do is I'm obviously going to go clean off my water, clean off my brush, and I'm actually going to add a little bit of orange over here, so that way I could use my blue with my orange to create the complementary color scheme. So go ahead and take care of this right now. Finish that up. I'm going to go get myself set up so I can show you this next part, okay? And we're back. So I have my paint palette where I added some orange. I have a new paper towel, and I have some clean water. So for this, what I'm going to do is similar to what I did here, but instead of using black, I'm going to use blue's complement. Remember, these are colors that sit across each other on the color wheel. So because of that, I added orange. So here are my primary colors, right? Red and yellow equal orange. So that goes right across from there. All right. Yeah, I know that red and blue don't equal black, but that's where I put, because I planned ahead. I knew what I was going to do. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and paint. So for my next trick, what I'm going to do is now I'm going to use a different kind of technique known as a scumbling technique, okay? Scumbling is a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. It gets results pretty quickly. It's a way to kind of create texture, because not everything is really super smooth like these things are, right? So I'm going to show you how to do that. All right, so scumbling is really what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be loading up my brush, and I'm going to be actually kind of stabbing my paper or my canvas, okay? So it's going to create textures. Now, it does have the unfortunate side effects of that. After a while, if you scumble a lot, you could potentially ruin your brush. But these are synthetic bristles. So synthetic bristles are pretty tough. So that means that I could be able to fix them up later and everything. So you'll notice one of the things I do is I go through and I make sure that nothing is really folded over. Okay, so because that's going to happen later. All right, and by the way, this brush is stained. So even if I clean it with soap and water, it's not going to get completely wet again. And that's fine. That's okay. All right, so scumbling. You're going to notice that I'm going to be stabbing the canvas with my brush. All right, I'm actually going to be doing a monochromatic one again here. All right, because it's easy, you know. Or actually, you know what? I'm going to do complementary. Right? Why not? Let's do complementary. Or yeah, so I'm going to do complementary. And I'm going to do red and green complementary. So that means I need to get some green onto my palette. So I'm going to add a little bit of green right in there. And so that's what I'm going to be doing, some red and some green. So I'm going to start off with red, and I'm going to be scumbling in like this. Okay, and you're going to see the whole thing happen, all right? Okay, so there you go. Alright, for my last and final trick here with the techniques, what I'm going to do is, notice by the way, clean water, clean brush. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use a scumbling down in here, okay? But then I'm going to do what's known as a feather stroke, okay? And the feather stroke is going to use my fan brush. I'm actually going to show you how to use this fan brush, because a lot of people will paint with it for certain techniques, and well, no, it's just not a regular brush. Look how much thinner it is, right? Look how the ferrule is very sensitive. So we're actually only going to be using this up here, and we're actually not going to get it wet. We're going to make sure that it stays nice and dry, all right? So that's something that you want to make sure that you have a nice, dry paper towel. I'm going to be using this brush again to scumble, and you'll notice in my palette what I did is I got rid of my black because I'm going to use yellow with violet, all right? So let me grab some violet here. And yep, you can see I'm using violet. I'm not using the P word. Okay? I bet you thought I was going to do it, didn't you? Nope. Not going to do it. Wouldn't be prudent. Alright, so from here what I'm going to do is I'm going to, once again, I'm going to be using my complementary colors. I'm going to be using scumbling. And then I'm going to be using my fan brush. Okay? So I'm going to start on this side here. And then I'm going to paint pretty quick. Then I'm going to show you how to use this, okay? So I'm going to speed up, paint, and then talk to you. Now comes the fan brush. Now you can barely see some of the texture that I have in here, okay, but you can still see it. And what's going to happen is with the fan brush, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be basically just barely brushing across, okay? And it's going to be very, very quick. So I'm going to be moving back and forth like this, far away, holding it at the back. I'm going to be coming across it like this, and you're going to notice a lot of these little textures disappear. It's going to help blend a little bit more. It's going to be more obvious over when I do this side. Super smooth blend. Look at that. I mean, that is awesome. Now here's the problem. Look at this. See my bristles? They're wet. So now what I have to do is I'm going to clean it off and make sure that it's drying, so that it's dry when I'm ready for this. Believe it or not, you could actually even use your flat to do this. Any dry brush will help do this, but the fan brush is typically what's used the most. So I'm going to go ahead and clean it off and let it dry. So as it's drying here, okay, so I clean it off. I'm going to let it dry, so that way it's ready to go when I'm over here, okay? So I'm moving it over to let it dry, and I'm going to move on to this part, okay? I'm going to flip this over because I think that works better for you guys. All right, so I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to keep painting. Okay, so watch what I'm going to do with this. Okay, same thing. Let's see. Look at that texture, right? Pretty fun, pretty cool. Let's blend it in together. Look at that, nice and smooth, right? That's kind of like the really cool thing about this, is that after you get like this texture on there, and then you take a nice little feather stroke with your fan brush on top of it, it smoothens it out. Really super cool, right? So that's just the thing to be. That's just another technique I wanted to show you. Something that you guys can do pretty easily. Okay. All right. So have at it, and I'll show you the last step. All right. So now comes the most satisfying part of this. Okay. Before we get to that though, we have to put away our palette. So what that means is I'm going to be actually taking some clean water, taking my brush, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of spritz my paint, okay? If you have a spray bottle, that works even better. You don't want a lot of water on it, just enough just to keep them nice and moist, okay? You see that? Just spritzing. If you use a toothbrush, you can do that too, okay? All I'm doing is just spritzing my water, just kind of like spattering some paint. Let's try this in English. I'm trying to spatter some water onto my paints, just so that way they're going to stay nice and moist, and then that way I don't lose this paint that I've used. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my large Ziploc bag and I'm going to put it inside of it. Now, what you want to do though is you want to blow some air into this. Okay, so then that way your Ziploc bag doesn't necessarily touch your paint. Okay, since I don't really want to blend into this, I'm going to use my aspirator here. So it's like a little balloon. Now I'm going to move this off to the side. So that water is going to help preserve my paints. Now comes the really cool part. Okay, I love this part. It's one of my favorites. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the tape. All right. So I always want to pull away from the paint. So coming over here, once it's all dry, I pull it away. Look at it. Oh my God, that's so satisfying. Before I go away, I'm going to make sure that I label these things so that way I know what is what. And that's really it. If you make a mistake somewhere up here, you've got a lot of room down here as well, okay? So don't sweat it. That's what we're doing, and then I'm going to show you how to apply this stuff to some paintings, okay? Cool, let's have some fun.